Hello, good morning, good afternoon for those and other areas of the world. Thank you so much for joining us one more time at Live with Intelligems, a weekly show where we go and talk with e-commerce experts, leaders, and practitioners about what's working and what's not working in the industry. So, super excited about this week edition. I've been waiting for this one really long, and I couldn't be excited to have Linda Bustos joining me today at the show. So, without further ado, Linda, good morning. I know it's earlier for you, so thanks for joining us today, and welcome to the show.
Carlos, super excited to be here.
Excellent. Let me just quickly check that we're live on LinkedIn because it seems to me like we might not. Yeah, it's working. So thanks to all of our LinkedIn friends. This is probably proof that we're actually live and with all that comes with it. So yeah, excited to be live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and X. So, Linda, really wanted to have you on the show. I think I invited you a while back because you're obviously a very well known name in the industry in like CRO, e-commerce, and someone who has been building like probably one of the biggest library of um, I guess UX ideas and interesting ideas that e-commerce brands might want to implement. We have some, I guess, some color to add to that, and we'll definitely want to go into more detail about the right way to approach a library of that kind. But before that, I really wanted you to give a brief introduction about yourself, like how you ended up doing this and building such a big library of e-com ideas, like quite literally, and a bit about your whole career trajectory. So tell us more about you, Linda.
I'll try to keep it quick. I've been writing about e-commerce and digital marketing for almost 20 years. I started off just blogging and writing about e-commerce. So e-commerce design, UX, uh, all that kind of stuff in a blog called Get Elastic. And over the years, I had developed quite a large collection on my computer of screenshots and short videos of these examples that I put in my blog. And I always wanted one day to like turnkey that and, organize it into a database and just give it all away. Because I used to do consulting, I used to do presentations, writing ebooks, all this kind of stuff. And I had that on my hands. But yeah, it had been an idea that had been kicking around for a very, very long time. But, eventually I decided to pull the trigger and, build it. And that's what ecomideas.com is. And I'm just looking around for what is kind of unusual, new and novel, or clever solutions to common ecom problems. I'm not trying to catalog every single design pattern out there. I think it's a mature industry and a lot of people know, what the components are and what the best practices are. So I'm just trying to find not necessarily good or bad ideas, but ideas to put on the table. This kind of stuff that you would send to your team in Slack, like, oh my God, look at this. I can't believe they did this, or, check this out. So just trying to build a big, organized catalog resource for that and share them with the community. And it's up to you to decide whether it's a good idea or a bad idea.
Right. So we just put a QR code on the top with a link to Ecom Ideas in case you're curious to go check what Linda is describing. But one of the things I personally like about Linda's approach is that is very experimental. So we'll actually spoiler alert, we'll go over some real like examples of, I guess, some of the recent discoveries from Linda's library. But one thing I'm very kind of like, I guess, opinionated or biased on regarding ecom ideas is that this is meant to be a source of inspiration about things you might want to test, not necessarily go implement blindly. And this is something we're going to go over in more detail shortly. But well, I wanted to ask you about that, Linda, because since you've been paying so much attention to, I guess, interesting stuff that brands are doing, you just recently mentioned like the analogy of like someone just sharing one of these like screenshots with their peers in Slack, which is something that's very natural. All of us have done that to in some shape or color, but you've been paying attention to also to what happened next, and if they stick to certain change or certain idea. Tell us a bit about like your realizations along the way, like the patterns that surprised you, the things that remained there, the things that were just possibly a test that they ended up just reverting because we could assume they didn't work. Like, tell us a bit about like your experimental view on just this whole library.
Yep. Well, whenever I find something that lights up my little dopamine because it's really cool or creative, I'm always super bummed out when I go back and check back months or a year later and they've totally taken it off of the site and reverted back to something very boring and typical. So, yeah, I've built up a little collection and we'll go through some of them today. But, the question is always begged on like, okay, well, was that an A B test? Was that something that, they were just running temporarily, experimental culture? It didn't win, so you can't keep what doesn't convert. That's one thing. Number two is, maybe there's some turnover in the creative teams or the product teams, and someone new comes in and just says, I don't like this. That's another option. Or it could just be that over time you talk to customers, you see people not engaging with it in your Hotjar or in your event tracking or anything, and it seems to be like a cool feature that nobody uses or is distracting. There might be like a performance element to it that you just added like this big heavy component in there and it looks cool and it serves a function, but it's better to take it off. There's so many reasons. And sometimes it's just your replatforming. You're moving from your Shopify liquid to Hydrogen. You got to build everything in React, and like nobody wants to go back and like rebuild this thing that somebody else did who's no longer here. All of these reasons could be there. But I think we all kind of default to like, oh, if they took it off, they must be measuring something and there must be a conversion story here. So I cherry picked a few of these examples that have broken my heart to see them gone. And then we can all together kind of give our perspectives on why we think it might not be there anymore.
Would love to do that. So how about we just check those examples?
Sure. Okay, let me.
Quick hi to our friend Oliver, who just dropped a comment confirming that we were actually live on LinkedIn. Thanks, Oliver, for joining. We met in London a couple of months ago at Circus London. So yeah, happy to see you're tuning in. Linda's screen is ready, so I'll just add it to stage and we can just get started. I'm very curious to see what you brought over.
Okay, well, I had to open it with one of my absolute favorite e-com things in the cart of all time. And I know the cart is a touchy subject. Nobody wants to distract anybody or over decorate it. And nobody wants to pile like 40 different cross sells into it. But this one for Uni Oven made so much sense. It was a stepped flow that it's like you already have an oven. These are just things that are compatible with it, will make your end use experience of the product so much better. And to me, this took out so much friction of like going to find accessories that you don't know exist, that are buried under a taxonomy on a mobile device. Like it's very hard to cross sell these intuitively and progressively otherwise. And I thought this was like one of the most creative and mind-blowing custom things. Now, the punchline is that recently they've reverted it.
Quick question though, were you supposed to have like kind of like the main product in the card before seeing this on the left?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, if you have the pizza oven already, that one that you see on the left, then when you click forward, So that one that we just saw, that screen of the oven, then you go next and you kind of go through this step. It's kind of like ordering Chinese food or hot pot, where you have to go through and
Right.
just like build your kit and then submit your order. But the one on the right is the present state right now, and they've just put it on the PDP. So yes, this is
Wow.
the exact same flow. It's no longer in the cart. And I'm going to stop talking there because I've said a lot. I want to know what you think about why they might have pushed it to the PDP.
Well, I mean, I've seen so many experiments that I've become so careful about just assuming why things would work or would not. But I think one option would be just exposure. Like the first version would just be visible if people added the product to the cart, uh, whereas the second one on the PDP is just exposing people to those upsells and cross sells before they just move with the main product. That being said, you could argue that that might add extra friction to the process because they haven't been, let's say, sold on the original idea, and you're already adding like extra information and like getting them to commit. So I'm personally surprised if the variation on the right was performing better, because if you ask me kind of like out of the blue, my assumption would be that the kind of like the card approach was more clever and probably would perform better.
Yeah, I'm just sorry. And I was trying to pause this because I don't know if anybody's getting fatigued from all this animation, but this is also a very long scroll on the product page, and you can't get to the cart button until you bypass all of these additional widgets. So I think that
Yeah,
too.
one additional note is that I think those three steps at the bottom might be confusing. Like, I mean, I get the idea, but to me that just might be extra cognitive load on the buying kind of like funnel, because it's like that's not even you moving into the checkout process or like anything like that. It's another like micro funnel within the funnel.
Yeah.
So that might just be too much cognitive load, and for people to process would be another reason. I don't
Yeah.
think they are using the same labeling on the newer version. Is that right?
Yeah, I think they might have dropped a few of the SKUs, and some of the more higher ticket ones, like this table of $350. Like those are a lot of decisions to make when you're already like halfway committed to checking out, and now you have to stop and pause and think about look, you're getting $1,000 already if you check any of these things off. 1,500 is the running tally. So
Totally.
yeah.
So they ended up sticking to the version on the right, or that's what's live as of now.
Right is what is live right now, and the one on the left was live for a couple years, if not longer.
Okay. So not, I mean, it definitely worked to an extent. Like if they kept it for like a couple of years.
Hmm. I mean, what one thing it could be is that they did re-platform, because you see the whole design is quite different. Like they looks like they rethemed, and maybe that was a situation where refactoring something this complex, there's coding, maybe that product manager is no longer there, and maybe it was just
Totally.
simpler to put it on the PDP. But the other, to your point, this is a lot of friction. It's unconventional. Um, to have those steps. It's a lot more additional decisions. It's a lot more to read. And yeah, this is one that, like, if you were going to ask me to guess which performs better, I love the left because of the cleverness and the ingenuity there. But it could be
Yep.
that the one on the right, the one thing that is kind of like, I don't know, I think if you were going to take this project on and like do an A/B test here on the PDP, what would you do with this cart button? Is that too far, or would you want to surface it or make it sticky that when you're scrolling, you still can add to cart even if you don't want to go through all of these um, options?
Totally. Yeah, one thing that I would also call out here is that this possibly a good reminder that it's always worth retesting stuff that's meaningful for your business. So here we're talking about upsells, potential significant influence on AOV and just your unit economics and your profit per visitor. So those are high stakes and stuff that even if proven successful, might be worth just retesting over time just to make sure that things remain uh, relevant for your audience, especially against like other alternatives that might become more successful after a certain time.
Hmm.
Oliver mentioned that he said he loved the approach, but he also said easy for small stores. His site has 30,000 products, so it would be really hard to deliver in a site with such a large catalog. I think that's definitely valid, especially I guess building the logic to
Hmm.
for this to work with the different products, but possibly something we're testing with the most key products on your catalog.
Yeah, and the bigger your catalog, the harder it is to maintain those associations once they start going out of stock, especially in fashion. When you see these shop the looks and like 3 out of 5 things aren't available anymore, or there's a size component to it.
Totally,
But I also
totally.
think
But
this
yeah,
kind of
super
thing is,
interesting idea.
mhm. I think one more thing is like this is an easy thing to kind of mock up a prototype and grab some actual user testers before even putting it live on the site, and you can get a lot of feedback and see where the friction points are there without having to take the risk of actually committing to it live.
Yeah, and I would assume that building the logic is probably the more complex aspect of it, because like just the way how you make it look on the front end might be easier. It's just getting easier these days to just reflect what what you want, but it's more of like a matter of if you have the right I guess engine for it to put this together in terms of like, I mean, this is an example that's like decently complex in terms of the number of options that are being shown and available.
Yeah, absolutely.
In both cases, something that I mean I'm curious about in both cases is that they definitely weren't shy about the upselling very aggressively, and sometimes like I think the base product, at least on the left, is like almost $800. Uh, that's already a big commitment. So in both cases, you could argue that you don't want to add so much extra friction on top of that. So I'd be curious, and I would assume that they have tested this. What happens if you just let the people just kind of like move uh, along the funnel and then showing them the all the accessories and other additions later in the funnel while they are more committed?
Yeah. Or even creating some bundled SKUs. So you land on this oven, you get like standard package, it's the oven. Package number 2 is like the most common useful accessories. Package number 3 is soup to nuts.
Yeah, generally speaking, it just seems like a lot of information and like cognitive load. But again, like
Mm-hmm.
we're just seeing a snapshot. We
Mm-hmm.
right now we don't know the entire kind of like background of why they ended up here, which
Yeah.
again speaks to your point before. Like there are so many ideas out there, and there's so many inspiration you can grab from becomeideas.com, for example, but you gotta really have your judgment and be sharp about just making sure that you test stuff to see what really translates and what is just noise, at least for your business.
Yeah. And it strikes me that the Uni team are very thoughtful about their UX and that they definitely have some kind of solid data driven reason around what they do.
Lovely. Do you have any more?
I
Yes, you
do. Okay,
do.
this one's a little bit more forgiving because they're videos, so I can pause them. So this
Nice.
is what we're looking at here. Is Morel did this just on it, one of their hero products, their speed run design, but here we see this CGI kind of visualization of all of the ways that it's constructed, and here there's pairing it with some romance copy around why you should care about this technology, and it's really whiz bang cool. And this is a high level of effort for the creative teams to put together.
Yep.
And one of the more beautiful and snazzy PDPs that you can come across on the web. Here, I hate to disappoint you, but this is what the new version, the current live version, looks like.
I think you can
And
click on that hide, uh, like
oh,
small
thank you.
button
Did you
there.
have to see that the entire time? Okay.
Yeah, now we don't see it.
Oh,
Lovely.
I thought only I saw that. So now
So
here
what
you see
happened?
this. We can actually, you know what? I'm going to run them head to head if you don't mind, so we can see them both scrolling together, and then you'll kind of see this
Please do.
comparison once you get down to the components. So static, flat, just just the text box
Wow.
without those animations, and video auto playing animations. They have accessibility issues, they have performance issues once you get to like 3 4 5 6 7 videos on a pdp, but yet it's stripped it down. It's the vanilla version, and that's the one that's live now.
Wow. That's surprising. I mean, the one on the left is definitely looks neat and nice. I can see many reasons why they changed their mind. One being that might be just a lot of like extra work for the creative teams, as you just mentioned. But
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, this is something that you would totally want to steal if you were on a similar industry. So it's really surprising and counterintuitive to see that it's no longer there. What's
I
your
guess
hypothesis there?
I guess another hypothesis could be that the videos were not populating here, and that it's a
Yeah,
bug, a temporary bug. But
in which case that's also like I mean another I guess element to monitor when you're introducing many. I mean, sometimes videos, sometimes just GIFs, images, like making sure that accessibility is in place, that people can actually render that kind of like content in the intended way.
yeah, and you could
So
be a CRO agency that this company is hiring, and the first thing that they look at is they beeline to the hero product, and they're like, let's run an A B test now. Like, yes, this was your control, and you had this here, and you invested a lot of time, but let's just test a stripped down version and let's measure the two against each other. That might be happening.
yeah, very interesting to see. And I'm pretty sure I have seen that kind of like animation with the components like coming along together more than once out there. Uh, but yeah, curious to know and definitely want to go check what the experience looks like as of now. Sometimes it also might change depending on the market and the geography they are serving. Um, but yeah, that's definitely an interesting idea. And I would also assume that with the right tools and the right prompts, you might be able to build those animations um, just by using AI. So that's also something to keep in mind in terms of like what's possible these days. Because I think something we haven't get into in much detail here is that obviously AI is just making way easier to test pretty much anything you come across uh, with out there. So it's kind of like an opportunity, but also a risk because it's tempting just to roll stuff out without testing, but also it's very easy to roll out the wrong things, and too many of those in a row might not be uh, making the effect that you intend as a business.
I think the nice thing about AI generation for some of these advanced creatives too is that if it does lose and you have to take it down, you didn't invest all of that time, um, making a very polished asset. If AI can accelerate creating the variants, then the experimentation doesn't cost you as much if it doesn't end up being rolled into the final product.
Absolutely, and also like yeah, it's basically democratizing the possibility of testing some of this stuff that would be really kind of like out of reach for many brands in the past, especially if like resources were limited from a dev standpoint and design standpoint. So this is definitely a good opportunity, and I think we are living in a great time for being inspired by something like what you post on ecomideas.com, because like going from inspiration to test, it's just getting quicker and easier every day.
Mm-hmm. And just one last comment on this one. If you're advanced, this might also be an optimization. Now, I took this on a fast connection on my desktop, just using DevTools. But if you're on a slower connection, you can also, choose to show or hide this media, so that it doesn't slow down. If you're like on a slow 4G or a 3G, you might just want to serve this
Right.
lightweight version of the page.
That's totally something that could happen like in the wild.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on
True
to
classic, good friends and a good
True
customer
Classic.
of Intelligems right there.
Well, they're very voracious A/B testers, and I actually found
They
this
are.
left side idea was posted by the founder of Two Classics. So he kind of posted on LinkedIn, like, go ahead and steal this idea. Yes, we have A/B tested it, and our competitors are going to take it anyways. But yes, this was a winner. And he went on to explain why, because a lot of people come to, this is very catalog specific. To the point of the commenter in the chat, that the larger your catalog, this isn't a repeatable pattern for every single business. But for this customer, for this catalog type, being able to stay on the PDP and not have to go into the menu, not have to go and bounce around to different collection pages, gives you kind of like an all-in-one shopping surface from the PDP itself. Honeylove is perhaps one of the companies that saw this, or maybe they're sharing some resources, but they are also doing this similar idea on their product pages, where you can just bounce between different product types from the actual PDP.
So it's like still being able to navigate the catalog while you are on a PDP.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And above the folds.
I'm especially kind of like, I mean, not surprised, but I find it interesting how tall they are on the True Classic side, because it's taking like a really good chunk of the viewport, easily 20% of the kind of like the real estate. So that's a nice trade-off, because obviously there's some other key information below, and there are some schools of thought that argue that you should just make the add to cart always visible and let people get to the actual content quicker. This is very counterintuitive from that point of view. Yet, as you mentioned, like even True Classics founder has said that this was a winning variant. That, I mean, clearly other brands are getting inspired by.
Yeah, and I wish that I'm
Why
showing
do you think
version.
this works?
I think that they have a very particular product line. Like it's variants of a T-shirt. They have other types of SKUs throughout, but this is their hero product, and they kind of look visually the same, at a glance. So this is providing a little bit of extra context here. You have Pima Crew, Active Crew. There's a little tiny, okay, this is the anti-odor tech fabric. Can I pause this? I don't think I can. But
Probably
yeah,
not.
it's learning for next time, use video embeds. Yeah, I think that this is very helpful because going back to a t-shirt collection and looking around might not be top of mind or somebody has the time or energy for. Putting it at your fingertips and you can scroll horizontally and basically explore the offering like you're standing in a store, just looking at a display. I think that
Right.
that helps. And they're also using this lovely Shopify capability of multiple products on a PDP where it just switches so seamlessly. Like you don't even see a page refresh here.
No, you don't.
So yeah,
Yeah, and
and I
this is
think
definitely a
important.
great time for doing a shameless plug on the new AI builder that Intelligems made available. Because what's fascinating about all these is that you can stand up variations and the required code to bring something like this to life in your store with only a prompt and a few iterations over that prompt. So that's a game changer because all of a sudden you no longer have to go through like an entire like process of like I guess going through like design and dev and just what was traditionally required to do something like this. Now you can go from idea to test in a really short time span, which again makes it a more interesting use case in the sense of like, okay, just an idea, we're not sure it's necessarily going to work for our business yet. The opportunity cost is like low. There's nothing to lose really if the ingredients are in place. So I think we're living in just the perfect time to test a lot of these let's call them crazy ideas that you come across while just being a shopper yourself.
Totally. And especially if you're a conversion optimizer and you're working with a team, but you're not embedded in the team, some of your testing ideas, if they have to be built and designed, would need to go into the product management overall, sprint process. And that might never make it to the sprint because it's low priority, it's unproven, it's an experiment, it's your idea. It would have to go through all these decisions. So being able to use AI to really quickly mock it up and maybe even code what needs to be done, whether through CSS or like whatever, being able to get that without having to, engage the client's core product team can help you actually get these into the production queue and into the testing queue a lot quicker and a lot with a lot less
Absolutely.
roadblocks.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, for those of us having been in the industry for long enough, this just feels like magic. But it's the age we're living at right now, so it's really interesting to and fascinating to be able to stand up some of these variations so quickly compared to what was like the standard like only a couple of years ago.
Totally. I'm curious if anyone in the chat has any ideas on whether this would work outside of these two kind of company use cases. Do you think it would work on a site like Gap?
Yeah, I like larger catalogs and potentially more complex. I'll definitely report back on the comment updates. I know you are kind of like blinded right now because you're going full screen, but I'll definitely let you know once we hear from the audience.
Sounds good. Well, let's move on because this is a pattern that a big site like Gap, actually Banana Republic is part of Gap. They borrowed this too, and I don't know which is the chicken and the egg, who did it first. But you can see here
Right.
they've got cross sells and this kind of stuff on one side and not the other. This is not actually an A/B test. I mean, they may be testing it, but what you're looking at on the left is the landing page for paid Google Shopping, Meta. When you're paying to acquire traffic and they're bypassing your normal organic navigation through your site, which is what you're looking at on the right-hand side, is just their normal PDP template. So for paid traffic, they appear to be trying to optimize for don't go anywhere. We paid for you. Don't go back to Google Shopping. We've got more stuff that you would like. So they're
Right.
surfacing that up higher. Yeah, so I'll stop there. What do you think of this strategy?
I think that's super clever and something I totally encourage brands to try. I mean, not necessarily this exact execution, but the idea of serving your customers with the right experience depending on some attributes like how they are reaching your site. So personalization is still an opportunity that's untapped in many cases, and this is actually only attribute based personalization. So it's not complex. It's something that you can achieve like even today with I mean it's inevitable to plug Intelligems once again here because it's possible to do something like this with Intelligems in only a handful of clicks. Uh, but yeah, I think we should be seeing more and more of this, like especially depending on your acquisition channels. To your point, Google Shopping might be a channel where you can hypothesize people are just comparing between different items and might still looking for alternatives. The only thing that I want to call out from the example that kind of like um, makes some noise on my end is that I think we're seeing, I mean, definitely a female model with some kind of code. Yet that module on the top is showing other products that are supposedly for men. So it might seem like potentially the right idea with the wrong execution, but that's me making an assumption here. I don't know what you think of that.
Yep. And I agree wholeheartedly that the merchandising logic could be sharpened here. What might be happening here is that I'm cookied and I test all different. I click randomly on products, so maybe this is personalized
Of
to me
course.
and what I clicked on last. But yeah, 100%. If you're a Google Shopping customer, please show more like this. And you'll also notice that this is the same recommended items at the bottom of the organic page, so they're reusing that component and just moving it somewhere else. So yeah, maybe that's my fault. Um, and also, I don't love the layout shift. That little pop there, that's not something that Google rewards
Right.
from a Core Web Vitals perspective. And it's something that it's like the flicker effect of A B testing.
Yep.
So, yeah, actually, that might be an A B testing flicker as well. I'm
I
sure the
mean, something that
performance
would
team
be
is
probably
testing it.
interesting to do here is, as you mentioned before, there's already kind of like a recommended product module at the bottom. So maybe you can just relocate the module and move it to the top, but using the same logic and kind of like just relying on what's already on the page. So that's something like potentially we're trying and really easy to build in only a handful of clicks again.
Mm-hmm. Yep, this is an easy A/B test.
It is. It's. I think it's more of a matter of picking the right audience and doing the right targeting. I think targeting is the magic here, not necessarily the actual like text test execution.
Mm-hmm. And I haven't heard a lot of people talking about this because very few brands actually do it. Well, I'm always trying. It's hard for me to find these out in the wild, so maybe I should say that instead of that. Not a lot are doing. Maybe tons are doing it, but it's hard for me to find ads that aren't exactly the same. They're landing pages as the regular page, but this one is maybe one of the most different, and that's Ralph Lauren. So if you click from a paid ad, you get this left side here. And before I start playing this, I just went, if you just eyeball it, you can probably already see so many visual changes. Like this looks like a radical A/B test, radical redesign. But the thinking is see similar items appear above the fold. Just don't go back to the the place you came from. Stay here. We've got more for you. So as I play these, they're going to go side by side. We can loop it a few times if you want to inspect it a little bit deeper. We can pause at any point if you want to say, hey, stop there. Want to compare the two side by side. But this is very, very interesting on how radically different these two experiences are. So got the see similar items button here. Then they're actually hiding the details where it's expanded on the regular PDP. So I guess they say if you're already on our site, you typed in ralphlauren.com, you've got more patience with the brand, you're more interested in all the details. That component on the left there, don't go anywhere. We've got new arrivals, we've got your style, we've got gifts. So more compact,
it's very different.
vertically. Mm-hmm.
It seems to me like the left version is more like kind of like straightforward and easy to kind of like digest. Like it seems to me that the one on the right, it's more like sophisticated, but you know that sophistication doesn't necessarily always translate into like effectiveness. So yeah, to me, and starting from like the height and the size of the main images, it seems like it's just more aspirational, if you will, while the one on the left is more like transactional. uh, but yeah, it's super interesting to see how just the same experience can look so different.
Yeah. And the thing that strikes me is the lack of description copy on the left. It's almost like they're like, you're not in deciding mode. You're so top of funnel with our brand right now that we just want you to look at products before you get into reading about them. And maybe they're thinking if you've clicked into a PDP from a journey within the brand site, you've already looked at a collection page, you've already seen a bunch of stuff, you've clicked on this, and maybe now you're at the point where you're ready to digest a little bit more about the finer details. I'm only speculating, but yeah, it was one of the most radical differences that I've spotted.
Yeah, I mean, and definitely like a very interesting source of inspiration. And I want to reiterate on that what Linda is showing us here is only a small taste of all the like over 1,000 ideas available on ecomeidea.com that you can just get inspired by. But at the same time, I think the reflection is that there's so much you can try that you really got to test this stuff, because these people that you're getting inspired by might also be either just testing things and actually figuring out that those, in many cases, just more clever solutions are just simply not working, or that might not translate the same way to your store. Like audiences are different, people behave differently depending on like the context. So it's really important to have like a more judgmental kind of like point of view, and kind of like yeah, like forming your own judge and also putting the stuff to test to make sure that these things are actually effective for your business.
Definitely. And a homework item for me is to go back and see if Ralph Lauren has changed anything on the left, because this is maybe 4 or 5 months since I found this one. So I'm sure they are testing, disciplinedly. And yeah, we might discover that maybe something like this component here, which, I mean, I think if you're a designer, a conversion optimizer, you probably have 800 ideas of how this component alone could be redesigned or rethought. Because we've got a couple calls to action, we've got a bunch of different fonts. There's not a lot of visual context in that background card. Um, Also, what I find really interesting here is complete the look, and you might also like fast forward is missing from that. So that's another test you could do if you're testing, paid traffic, is maybe remove some of the cross sells. And what I've seen, actually, I should have popped that in there. LL Bean was doing something where if you came through paid search, it took away the reviews and it just started putting like basically like a mini PDP collection page. So you hit the end of the product. If you didn't pick it, here are very, very visually similar things, instead of looking at reviews. And I thought that was kind of clever too. They stopped doing that for whatever reason, but I think it makes sense, to keep like, why go and figure out which collection page to go to next? You just landed on the site. That hamburger menu is hiding a lot. Let's just give it to you.
Right. Yeah, you never know. Like, and I think the larger the company, the more like politics and people in the mix, and the less control you have over certain elements and components. So you gotta work around that. But also, if you're a more lean kind of like organization, you have way more freedom to try some of this stuff out. So I guess don't miss out on that opportunity.
Yeah. And I could just imagine the performance team loving that they don't have to be tied to whatever the brand team, the regular marketing and digital product team decides on the PDP, that you actually have flexibility to run with your own hypotheses and actually develop experiences independently. That's a nice thing for a team that's comped on different things than the general e-commerce team. So
yeah, I'm
how
with
are
you.
we doing for time? I have one last slide.
Let's go.
Let's go.
We're definitely over time, but this is being so interesting that we can totally go over here.
Okay, so we'll end on this one. This is Gap on the left and American Eagle on the right, two kind of heritage mall brands that I'm sure have massive teams, probably like 40 or 50 different product teams under one hood. But this is, both of them use this kind of micro navigation. I don't know what else to call it, but where a call to action button actually flips into a drop down or a drawer with navigation links. My first thought when I saw these are like, these are annoying, because like, who actually goes through the effort of tapping and then navigating this way? And it's not a conventional pattern, but both of them keep bringing them back season after season, campaign after campaign. So I was just curious on your thoughts of, did you find this counterintuitive, or do you look at this and go, yeah, no, that actually, I could see how this could be good UX?
I mean, two things. One is I'm kind of concerned about accessibility there, because like it's not necessarily easier for everyone to tap into such small kind of like buttons, because these are essentially buttons.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I see the need for such large brands to like kind of like get people into the place that makes the most sense for them. Even like so many times brands just focus on like making people go visit certain section or category. Like, I mean, definitely women, men, and kids is very common one. And personalize the experience from that point onwards to show that kind of like content. But sometimes like people might shop more than one category for several reasons. Like you're shopping for your entire family, on you're looking for a gift, then maybe you will shop for yourself. So that assumption that you can just personalize for their first selection doesn't always translate into like the effectiveness that it's kind of like under assumption. I mean, obviously in this case, we're talking about Gap and American Eagle. So those catalogs are really, really large and possibly complex to navigate. So I think it might make sense for them to do something like this because they have to. If I was a smaller brand, I wouldn't just implement this. I mean, it's possibly worth a test, this is probably very easy to build with like the AI visual editor that Intelligems recently launched, as I mentioned before, and possibly worth the test. But otherwise, it's something I would be very careful about just implementing because it's really bold and yeah, possibly distracting. Like, what I'm curious though, like, I'll definitely go check that. And I think it's clear on the right, on the example of the right, but not so much on the left, is what would happen if you just tap more closer to the left of the button. Because right now, I think in that reference you were specifically tapping on the like the icon, but
Mhm.
I would be curious to know what happened if you just tap on the actual like shop now kind of text. But I think it would just do the same. So effectively, you're adding just one more click into the mix. That's not always necessarily effective, but this is such a great example of the things that are interesting, definitely inspiring, but something you gotta really put to test and just instead of just go and implement like blindly, because what works for those massive brands, um, one more time, won't necessarily translate into the same level of effectiveness for your brand with 10 SKUs, you know.
You bring up a good point about brand strength because I think that the more exclusive the product is, the more people are committed to your brand, the more wiggle room you have to kind of make things harder. People will give up if they think that they can get this widget on anywhere that is easier to shop, or if they're not convinced that the juice is worth the squeeze to keep, fiddling through this kind of, unconventional design pattern. I think what they're doing here too is trying to avoid sending people to, like, if you do a shop now and you get to a very long PDP, it's kind of a jambalaya of merchandising. And then somebody has to then, especially on mobile, like engage with a filter to get down to the department or to get down to the category that they want to see. So I think what they're trying to do is like move some of that decisioning up ahead. So
Yep.
build some more friction up front to ease the friction on the next click. And I like that line of thinking if that's what they're thinking. Um, but yeah, it is. Yeah, it's just something that you know. When I first found this a couple years ago on American Eagle, and then somebody sent me like, "Oh, Gap's doing this too." It was just something that like I never would have thought to A/B test, and if somebody proposed it to me, I'd be like, I can tell you like 10 reasons why I don't think we should do this. But here
Yeah,
we go,
it's
follow the
definitely
leader.
novel. It's definitely novel and something I'm now very curious about. I also recall like experiencing something quite like this, but it's clever to say the least. So I think that's the whole point behind, and you can keep me honest here, behind ecomIdeas.com, which I'm adding to the screen once again. If people are curious to go visit, it's just to sometimes think a bit outside of the box. So that's not like a recipe. I think I'll speak for Linda when I say that this is not intended to be a place where you just go and only get inspired by, but you also kind of like cross reference with your own intelligence and your own research. And sometimes you just connect the dots and like, okay, that's clever too. And this is something that might help us fix this issue that we detected our users have. So, I mean, Linda, this has been really amazing and rich in content. Once again, I'm putting that QR code on the top. But before we wrap up, I would love you to speak on why people, and especially people in experimentation, should go check and get inspired by some of the files and references that you have on the site.
Well, I think that I've tried to organize it in a way that you can really drill down by feature, by page type, and even through the search you can find different industries. Like if you're in footwear, you can see what other footwear brands are doing. And It takes a lot of time to just go and like try and collect ideas looking at peer sites and all this kind of stuff. So, it might save you 5, 10, 15, 20 hours of manual looking to start there, browse, see like, okay, what are people doing with buy boxes? What are people doing with navigation menus? What are people doing with cart drawers on mobile? I'm trying to catalog stuff by the different brands that are doing twists on the same thing. So it's just a reference. It's up to you to decide whether it's appropriate for your client or your use case or your customers, and to put your own design and feature functionality spin on it. But I just wanted to catalog a bunch of ideas for, just inspiration and a starting point for anyone in this industry.
Totally, and I would add to that that I mean, obviously, as biased as it gets here, but what I love about Linda's catalog is that it's framed in a way that's kind of like very much aligned with growth experimentation mindset, in the sense of like kind of like using a language that encourage people to test some of these changes instead of just blindly go and implement them. So that's obviously something that our audience is very aligned with, and that's why I'm so happy that you joined us today, Linda. So I think that's it for today. We definitely went over in time, but that was for a very good reason. So I'm really happy that you finally joined live with Intelligems, and I'm looking forward to having you once again in the future. Any final remarks on your end before we wrap up for today?
Maybe we'll just close it with, you can't keep what doesn't convert. So always be testing with a tool like Intelligems.
Love that. Thanks so much, Linda. And see you guys next week at the same time. Thank you all.
Thank you.